there for those voters. It's a form of pre-electioning, right? Because you would have launched your campaign recently. Any updates in terms of how, gathering candidates or screening for potential people to hold the different posts that you will be seeking?
No, we haven't gone into that mode just yet. What we announced at our assembly 2 Sundays ago was that we are preparing for the elections, and that our theme of our assembly, remember, was that the MSJ is your only option for the next government, because we truly believe that, because the traditional parties that have been in government alternating over the years from 1986 to now, alternating, and before that, of course, it was only the PNM, those parties have, by their actions, by their track record, demonstrated that they just don't care about how people are living, because the policies don't impact positively on the lives of people. So no, we haven't yet gone into the mode of candidate selection and screening and all of that. This motorcade wasn't precipitated by elections, but it's precipitated by our wanting to identify with problems that people have in their communities, and for people to know that the MSJ is very much alive and is a serious political party and is their only option going forward.
Talking about election mode and so forth, would the MSJ be going solely and wholly and solely by himself, or would you all be thinking about merging with any other political party?
There's no discussion at this point in time about any mergers with anyone, and there are certain parties that we know that there can be no possibility of alliance or merger with, that is for sure. And therefore we are preparing to contest the elections on our own, yes.
Given the PETROTRIN issue, PETROTRIN is the episode is allocated in PNM from local government elections.
Right. Some of them are. It's spread across different areas because, yes.
We understand the multiplier effect of the governments if you have a relative there. So, do you think that this will actually prove to be the legal government election coming up in 2019?
Yes, I mean, the feedback that we have been getting has been very positive, in that people who have previously supported the PNM, particularly in 2015, are saying to us, listen, Mr. MSJ, you all have to step up now. This is the time for MSJ to make a serious challenge for power in this country, for office in this country. And in fact, we have been getting quite a number of membership forms coming in from workers who were previously employed in PETROTRIN and from other people generally, because people are realizing that the PNM, if it ever defended in the last 15, 20 years, which of course is questionable, the interests of working people and the poor, clearly now have turned their backs on the working people and poor. When the PNM came in 56, one could say it was seeking to bring about certain kinds of positive social and economic changes in the country, and laying a foundation for citizens to improve their lives through education, public housing, healthcare, and a range of other policy measures and so on. But the Rowley government has repudiated the policies of Eric Williams, and in fact is breaking up the foundations that Eric Williams laid in the country, one of which is that there should be strong trade unions. Because although the OWTU had major battles with Williams, Williams never sought to destroy the trade unions, and Rowley is seeking to do that now. So workers are recognizing that more and more, and therefore are saying that their only hope is for an MSJ government.
You mentioned that there is a labor supply contract to service the different countries. How long do you think the refinery and hospital, which were also very recently, how long do you think these facilities will be on board? Or do you think that they have planned to release themselves?
Well, that's a good question, Richardson. The narrative about the refinery has changed from August 28th, because remember Mr. Eswine said on August 28th that there was absolutely no plan to sell the refinery. Remember that? Yes? And he repeated it more than once. And then Dr. Rowley came and said that the OWTU would be given the option to buy. Now that the OWTU has actually put forward a proposal, you are now hearing Franklin Kahn, Minister of Energy, and other ministers saying that there will be a process of international requests for proposals to buy, and then I heard them say most recently, or lease. Now lease had not come up before. The OWTU had talked about lease initially. So they keep shifting the goalposts, which to me seems to suggest that they always knew what they were going to do with the refinery, and therefore the closure of the refinery was always being set up for somebody to buy it, and that person was not the OWTU. But we shall see in the fullness of time what takes place. We are aware that the OWTU has made a very serious proposal, and the union, I suppose, will inform the country through the media precisely what they're offering. Anything else? And of course, the media is invited to come down on Sunday morning to Dunlop Roundabout, 9 o'clock. I know that's earlier than you would normally head out. Sorry? And a little further than you normally have to go. But we would certainly like to see you there, and you could be in touch with myself and others, to find out where we are. So if you want to meet us in Faizabad, for example, or when we come near Sanfanadi, you could do that, and when we're heading Marbella and that kind of thing. So keep in touch with us in terms of the timelines, because you know how these motorcades run.
Yeah.
You set timelines, and then
we know that.
People stop you, and you have to chat with people in different communities, and the timeline shift over. The MSJ wants to first say that what happened over the last week with respect to the workers of PETROTRIN, who were all retrenched as of the 30th of November, was nothing short of an atrocity, an absolute abomination in terms of the treatment that the workers received when on Friday, the 30th of November, the day set by the company many months ago for all the workers to be retrenched. Workers did not receive their salaries on time, their severance benefits, their pension payments, and so on. And in the case of pension payments, then had to realize that money had been withheld from their severance payments because of some issue with the Board of Inland Revenue. All of that was totally unacceptable treatment by this company, by Espinay, and supported by Dr. Rowley as Prime Minister and the government generally. Totally unacceptable treatment of workers. And then for Mr. Espinay to come and say, with respect to the temporary workers, more than 600 of them who got not a cent, many of them long-serving temporary workers who contributed immensely to the development, not just of PETROTRIN, but of Trinidad and Tobago, that these workers have to suffer, is an indication of the mindset of Espinay, who doesn't care a damn about people's lives. He doesn't suffer at all. He may live in 2 different countries, Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago. He could jet about the place. He has not a financial care in the world. He's not suffering. But for workers who contributed to more than $49 billion in tax revenue between 2001 and 2014 to Trinidad and Tobago, who contributed billions of dollars in foreign exchange, none of which Espinay contributed a cent to. For him to say that these workers must suffer is an abomination, and is something that the MSJ condemns totally and outright. The closure of the refinery and the sending home of more than 5,000 workers is going to adversely affect not just those workers, but the economy of the South and the country generally. we are pretty certain that the forecast of foreign exchange earnings and profits by the new entities, Pariah and Heritage, will not materialize in the way that the government has been boasting and so on. And we are sure that what has happened is actually going to be very detrimental to Trinidad and Tobago. For example, the government, we are certain, had to guarantee the borrowing of more than $3 billion to meet the pension fund shortfall, the liability to the pension fund, the deficit that arose as a result of the way in which the company sent home all the workers and so on. And that $3 billion, which had to be borrowed and no doubt government guaranteed, together with the $2.7+ billion for paying severance benefits and other terminal benefits to the workers, also most likely government guaranteed and borrowed, could have in fact paid off the infamous $850 million US bullet payment that was due next year, which bullet payment has itself been refinanced and no doubt under government guarantee as well. So that the entire reason or rationale for the government taking the action of closing the refinery and sending home all the workers, supposedly to avoid the country having to deal with this $850 million US bullet payment and possible downgrade of the country's debt, profile getting worse, and the downgrade by Moody's and Standards & Poor in terms of our credit rating and so on, that all of that was really a false narrative. Because the very thing that they said they were trying to avoid is in fact what has happened with an even greater impact or effect, because they have had to guarantee the $850 million US bullet payment, they have had to guarantee the pension fund liability and the borrowing for the severance payment. And so in truth and in fact, the debt position of the country is worse now than it was when PETROTRIN was operating, because PETROTRIN at least was paying and servicing all of its debt requirements and so on. So that was an absolute false narrative, and we shall see the motives emerging for that false narrative and the actions arising out of that false narrative. One of the things that has happened, we understand, is that there's a labor supply contract arrangement with Kenson, who is providing labor in the oil fields, Trinmar, and the land oil fields of former PETROTRIN, what is now Heritage, and to the terminaling operations known as Pariah. Now, the labor supply contract arrangement is the worst form of contract labor imaginable, and this was identified as far back as the early 1970s by a commission of inquiry known as the Zinn Henry Commission of Inquiry into Contract Labor, chaired by a then expert in industrial relations, Dr. Zinn Henry. One of the members of that commission, Dr. Shafiq Sultan Khan, in fact, is still alive. And the Zinn Henry Commission of Inquiry report said that labor supply contracts are just one step above indentured labor. It's the worst form of contract labor possible. But that is where this country has been sent back to, one notch above indentured labor, sent back to that status by Espinay and Rowley and all of those who are responsible. And this labor supply contract arrangement is the BP model, but we're not surprised by that, because Robert Riley is one of those who is a consultant, so-called expert consultant to the board, and would have therefore advised on that model. Lisa Ali, who is the head of the transition team, or was head of the transition team, she is an ex-BP person. Nigel Campbell, who became Chief Financial Officer of PETROTRIN before its closure, also ex-BP person. And therefore, we're not surprised by this BP-type model of labor supply contracts, which is just one notch above the indentured labor status of which ended in 1917. That's where Rowley and Espinay have taken this country back to. And you got all the part of the motorcade and so on, right? Yeah? So the MSJ, in continuing our solidarity with the PETROTRIN workers, because we have always been in solidarity with the PETROTRIN workers, but not only the PETROTRIN workers who are out of a job, but with all working people who are today suffering, those people who SPNA doesn't care about and those in power don't care about, people who barely making it from payday to payday, not sure how they're going to put food on the table in the morning, people who are struggling with high prices, high food prices and prices generally. No, the ambulance. While at the same time, there were wages and salaries have not gone up for the last 5 or more years. People who are experiencing in their communities problems with bad roads, like in Tabaquite, or problems of schools, and there are many schools that have not opened properly up to today, or problems with respect to healthcare facilities and so on, and other issues, crime and violence in the country. The MSJ is in solidarity with all of those who are experiencing pain and difficulty and suffering and trauma of one kind or the other. And so, as an expression of our solidarity with you, and to say that we understand your pain and difficulty and are prepared to do something with you about it, we are having a motorcade, a two-day motorcade, starting on Sunday at the Point FORTIN Dunlop roundabout, or it's popularly known as the Dunlop roundabout, just outside Port FORTIN. And we'll be traversing the entire south on Sunday, getting as far north as Claxton Bay, Gasparillo, and so on Sunday. And we're coming back to San Fernando at Paramount Building. And then on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, the 10th of December, we head north, but we'll be going via the Southern Main Road from Coover, California, all the way up to Canoopia area and further north, and then heading out to Arima, and then down the Eastern Main Road from Arima into Port of Spain, ending at the Nelson Mandela Park around 6 p.m. on Monday evening. And Monday, the 10th of December, is a significant day because that's the United Nations International Day for Human Rights. And so we are identifying the rights of all workers in this country and of all citizens to have a better life, a decent life, and to express our solidarity with them who are experiencing difficulty at this point in time.